Read my lips. Quote by the guy who never showed his face. Hello and welcome to the all-new ThyGap podcast. This is me being Brute and with me is...
Bogus Noog.
Bogus, read my lips. Can you do it?
No, because I can't see your face.
That's because you're blind. If you remove your black goggles that cuts the daylight from your retina.
I don't think it'll still help, bro, because as you know, we always record in a dark room anyways.
Yes, because of electricity issues.
Yep.
But Bogus, enough said. Let's get to what we are here to do, okay? It's not easy to follow our socials.
Oh, yes.
So it's not easy to go to Instagram.
Which is @_ThyGap.
And then if you go to Twitter.
Which is @ThyGap.
Or if you want to write a mail to us.
Which is mindthygap@gmail.com.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
You know why it's not easy?
Why is that?
Because of today's episode. The intent. You need to have the intent to go to all these places and connect to ThyGap.
Yep.
Be the elite, the absolute elite audience to connect to us.
Yeah, it is definitely easy to reach out to our email, for business inquiries,
right?
Sponsorships, etc.
Right.
That part is easy.
Yeah, like gift us watches.
Yeah, try it out.
So, jumping back to the agenda, which is intent, it's not easy.
Yep.
We intend to
go into the first segment.
First segment, which is the definition of intent.
Yes.
Are we speaking about intent or intention or intending?
All of them.
All of them.
Above.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good. We cover it all, guys.
Yep.
Stop writing to us. Okay, so intent, Bogus, if you can dish out the dictionary definition.
Intent, amazingly helpful definition, bro.
Like always.
The first one is intention or purpose.
Exactly.
Second one is determined to do something.
Is that intent?
Yeah. The government was intent on achieving greater efficiency.
Oh, okay.
Unlike any government we've ever known. But yeah. The third one is showing earnest and eager attention. A curiously intent look on her face.
I think that's enough, Bogus. I think that's enough for today. We do this exercise so that we set context with everyone, Bogus, so that we are all on the same page.
Exactly.
On the same para.
Yes.
With the same line.
Yep.
Right? And this, my dear friend, is a very good example of how one simple innocent word has so many different connotations.
Yeah, and a great example is the reason why we have the first segment of every It's Not Easy episode is to go into the intent.
Exactly, the intent of the episode. And if you want to understand the complexities of the vocabulary, please check out our language episode. It's not easy. Just recent. So subscribe and share. Yeah. So what is our definition, Bogus? Do you want to give it a shot? What do we mean by intent?
I think, bro, even if I were to attempt our own definition, it would be as useless and as vague as the Google definition. We might as well just move on.
Yeah, but I'll give it a shot.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Our perspective on intent is to intend to bring out the intentions of our intent, to decipher the meaning of intent and why it's not easy.
Okay, I stand corrected. That was definitely more helpful than the Google.
Absolutely. We are always more helpful than anything.
Yeah. I shouldn't have guessed ourselves. Like, that self-doubt was not required.
It was out there.
Self-doubt is
I
not
started off this episode with that. Read my lips, Bogus. Yeah. Read my lips. So now we go into the second segment, which is the bigger chunk of the episode, which is why is it not easy? Right? Why is intent not easy? So,
yeah, as you know, we were having our deliberations on the episode, bro, of 2 to 3 minutes, as we always do.
And with like out of that 3 minutes, we took like 47 seconds of break.
Yeah.
Just to like ponder.
It's a busy life.
Yeah.
So from a bird's eye view, it looks like 3 things have to work.
Stop making it sound like a subject, okay?
No, I'm just saying for our...
Talk to me.
I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Like for our audience to be able to follow through, right? The connections that we're going to make. I just want to touch upon the subheadings first. Then we'll go into...
Don't label our audience to be dumb and stupid.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to explain our intent.
I think this is all we're going to do.
The whole thing is just to explain the intent.
Yeah.
So from a high level view, if you look at this, it seems like three things have to work, bro, for this intent thing to work. One is the person, first of all, who's trying to express their
should
intent.
know the intent.
First of all, should know.
Right.
Should be able to understand their own intent.
Right.
Second thing is they should be able to express their intent properly.
Right.
Third thing is the other person has to be able to absorb
the intent
or understand the intent properly.
So this is a life cycle of intent.
Yeah, that seems to be. I mean, ThyGap.
It random plug.
Subscribe
and share. So
you'll never get this analysis anywhere else.
Intent reaches its moksha, enlightenment, a manifestation, emancipation, and constipation.
Yep.
Release.
That too.
Once the other person actually is like, now I get you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen in our episodes for some reason. We never seem to be getting each other. We just say it because it's scripted.
Yeah.
But so let's go to the first phase, which is...
And the other interesting thing connecting to what you just mentioned, bro, is we also found linkages between language, communication, and intent.
Yeah.
Communication, of course, is an episode that
will be coming.
We will be doing in the future. So ThyGap.
There is no order to this, guys.
Yes.
There is no order to this.
You have to connect the dots at the end.
We break the rules.
Yeah. So communication is like the ISAB goal for the constipated intent, if you communicate well enough, your intent well enough, then it will flow through.
Like it's a well-oiled engine.
Like a high-fiber diet.
Yeah.
Anyways. So the first thing, bro, like you were saying.
Yeah. So why is it not easy? The first phase itself, I think, is, and this is purely general. I think everybody knows this, but I want to reiterate this. We don't seem to be clear with our own intent. Like 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
We really don't know what we are trying to do wherever we are. And that's why it branches out into this complex problem. The fact that we don't know what we are there to do, what is our intent, what are our intentions. How often have you asked somebody, like, why exactly are you working? It's a very simple question. Like, why do you want to do a job? And everybody's like, I don't know. There is no clear-cut understanding of why they are present at a particular location of their life.
I literally had that conversation earlier today.
Yeah, with me?
No, with another friend. So it's true. The first point is, of course, the person who's trying to communicate has to be, first of all, aware of their own intention.
Right.
And that itself is not easy.
Yeah.
Why is that? In my observation, bro, I felt like it doesn't seem to occur to people that, oh, this is something that I need to be careful with. Like I'm going to communicate with my friend, or I'm going to communicate with my manager or anyone. It doesn't seem to occur to us that this is actually not a trivial kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is something that we should pay attention to, or we should be conscious of how we are communicating with these people.
Yeah.
Because unless you feel the importance of that, why would you even bother to, stop and check whether, hang on, do I understand my intent first of all? Like,
the other reason why I feel that people don't, we don't invest enough into understanding our own intent is because majority of the times, again, plugging in simplicity, it's not easy.
Oh, yeah.
Majority of the times our intents are very simple.
Yeah.
Our intentions are like supremely basic, right? It's like, why do you want to eat a burger? Because I want to, I like burgers, etc.
I see what you're saying.
The moment we come to that point that, is that all? Is that all why I am doing this? No, there must be something more deeper, something more spiritual, something
more complicated.
Yeah, it has to be something more
sophisticated.
Yeah, and then we are like, no, it can't be true. Let me just go through the drill first.
Yeah, I didn't go through 4 years of engineering for this shit.
Yeah,
for it to be this simple, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm much more smarter than this.
Of course.
So that is another reason.
Educated.
Literate. I'm like, I contribute to 98% of the Kerala's literacy. So I think that is another reason why, we are never giving enough importance to intent.
Focus also.
Yeah. And the best place to find the lack of intent? Can you guess?
Best place to find
people
a lack of intent.
Like basically you find people with like zero intent. They're just there. Can you think of any place?
YouTube?
No, I mean, but in person. I'm like, have you gone to like mass interviews or like mass recruitment?
This
thing?
I have, yeah.
That's the place where you see a truckload of people who are just there with no clarity of intent, which kind of again trickles into like there is no base to the story they say. They by-hearted like 2 pages about the job, the KRA, and the fancy buzzwords.
Yeah.
And they're sitting across the table just to vomit it out.
Yeah.
Rather than have a conversation or at least show some level of merit to themselves. And I think this also connects to like intent.
Right.
Like when you don't have the clarity, these are some of the outputs. So that is the first phase of why it's not easy to capture intent of our own selves.
And just to add to that, I think there's another layer to this possibly, which is one is, okay, you may or may not be consciously aware of, what your intent is actually, or understand it properly. But even if you understand it, sometimes what I've observed is people tend to forget. Like this happens when you ask someone to make a presentation on something, or there's a client coming, our pitch has to be rock solid.
Right.
So in these kind of situations, we're always, when we are preparing amongst ourselves, right, in the group, we're trying to focus on, okay, what is the main objective? These are the main key points that we have to touch, which will compel the client or convince the client to buy into what you're selling. Now, that becomes the objective there, overall objective or overall intent, is we want to make the client understand or walk away with the feeling that, oh, I'm saving my money. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting a great deal. Right. Blah, blah, blah. You know all about this. So
no, I don't. I just...
you act like
no, I act like it. I fake it and I made it.
Yeah, that's good enough. We covered this also in our previous episode.
Yeah.
ThyGap, subscribe. Which episode was that?
I think it's pretending. It's something to do with pretending. This, you see, bogus, we have done so much of stuff.
We're pretty much going to cover.
There's only so much we can remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the problem that I observe, right, when you ask them to, okay, go and work on their piece, this is the part of presentation that you have to deal with, you have to cover. When they come back, it all seems like scatterplot.
Yeah.
You can't make out a clear-cut strategy. You can't make out a clear-cut plan. There seems to be no, like in digital marketing, they design websites in such a way that they compel the audience to
go to that one point.
Go to that call to action button, right? There doesn't seem to be any plan like that.
Yeah.
Which is drawing a client's attention. It all seems to be like just
chaos.
Things thrown to the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And then you ask them, we discussed all this. What happened to that main point we want to touch? And they're all blank. They tend to be just, blank faces.
Yeah.
Which means while you were working on it also, you were not able to remember or retain
the foundation,
the main objective, the main intention, what we wanted our client to feel.
Yeah, I think that kind of is a segue to why communicating an intent also becomes difficult.
Yeah. Like, let's assume that this person is able to understand their intent now.
Yeah.
Why is it still not easy for this person to communicate their intent?
Okay, so the intent is basically the intangible of your communication.
Yeah.
You cannot quantify intent.
Yeah, I think it's the emotion of it.
It's the emotion part of it, right? It's the ether part of your verbatim.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do not, and I've been a victim of that most often than not. And especially for people who are telling jokes.
Right.
It's all the more, you have to be on the laser, you're
and
just
you kind
to be
of
away.
Put yourself in a vulnerable spot.
Yeah,
you take chances with.
Absolutely. Because you're revealing your intellect and you basically are stripping naked mentally, right? So, and speak from that standpoint. The reason why it becomes very tricky is at some point, intent doesn't really care about morality. It doesn't care about ethics. It doesn't care about sensitivities, etc., etc. Intent only cares to the merit of the whole activity.
Okay.
So when you are in that position, it becomes very tricky for us to like, okay, how do I make it soft?
Right.
How do I make it more absorbable? How do I make it more sellable? And the best way to explain this is through a joke. The intent of a joke is very simple, right? You make somebody laugh.
That's it.
Right? It's as bare and naked as you can get. But still, there are so many people. I mean, it can also be the influence of what has happened to your colleague, what has happened to someone who actually had cancer and you cracked a joke on cancer.
Right.
And etc., etc. Your own experiences, your surroundings, your observations, and you're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I should not push this. The moment you have that maybe on an intent diffuses.
Yeah.
Right? You are like all over the place.
Self-censored.
Yeah. So that I think is one major challenge of why it's not easy to communicate intent, because intent is very intangible and you want to quantify it.
Yeah.
And anything which is intangible can't be easily quantified. You like really need a lot of practice, or you need to trip and fall on your face to actually understand like, oh, this is how I can do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people give it up in midway. They're like, you know what, I'll just blurt my words out. Let him figure it out. It's his headache or it's the other person's headache.
Yeah. And sometimes
it's not even a headache.
Too risky. You would have seen someone else
trying to do the same.
Be at the receiving end of a controversy for trying to say some simple thing.
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, should I even try now?
Yeah. Should I even bother?
The flip side of that is so bad.
Yeah.
It's all cancel culture. It'll just pounce on me and
No, I mean, like, I'm not even bringing the current affairs into this. Mm-hmm. The current affairs, I don't think there's any place for intention, to be honest. Yeah. And that is where we have come to because we've never given importance to intent.
Yeah.
Unfortunate as it is. Mm-hmm. But ThyGap speaks the truth.
ThyGap, subscribe.
And share. But you get the point, right? Like why it's not easy to communicate intent is, I think that is one major reason. That even if you have a fair understanding of your intent, it's still very intangible. Yeah. And now you're trying to quantify that. You're trying to give it a shape and form through the weakest tool once again. Of a language and etc.
Yeah.
Where it's very difficult. It is also like how you are communicating. Is it through a message? Is it through like a video chat?
Yes.
Is it in person? Is it in a letter?
A lot changes with that also.
Every medium has its own interpretation.
Yeah.
So the intention is lost in the chaos of all this.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like the other thing that it makes communicating intent not easy is, again, there's so many times that in the ThyGap podcast, we've touched on things that A, either people don't talk much about.
Right.
Or B, that there is no clear blueprint for. Like there don't seem to be instructions.
Yeah.
For something. No guide. There's no guidebook for something so critical or so crucial.
Right.
Like communicating intent, I feel like if we had our priorities in the right places,
right,
this would be something we would go over, including how do you deal with money as you're growing up? How do you plan for your money?
Financial discipline.
Nothing.
Yeah. It's just an example.
Yeah. I mean, they don't give us a blueprint into any of these things. And these seem to be the more important things. So we're never taught that, okay, first of all, intent is important. The person has to take away exactly what you intend. That is when you can say communication is working properly.
Right.
So this is how you set your intent. Try to frame your words in this way or start with a disclaimer. No examples, no instructions. Just throw them out to the sea. Let them fend for themselves.
Right.
It's the same formula repeating itself over and over again.
Right.
Which is another reason why it makes it not easy. That even if I understood my intent, I would find it very difficult to express it because I don't have tools. I don't have a structure or a guidebook or a lesson in how I should, communicate my intent.
Yeah. That's always the problem. Yeah. That's always the problem, right? Like I said, I think again, because it's so intangible, it becomes extremely subjective.
Yeah.
These are like some of the top 2 reasons of why it's not easy to communicate intent.
The other reason that I could think of is...
We are making it top 3?
Yeah, top 3.
Top 3.
Or the only 3. The other reason is that it requires such a strong command over, not even language, over communication. Of course, you need to have command over the language you're communicating in, but you have to understand the difference between having command over language and difference between having command over communication.
So you're saying articulation.
Yeah, again, articulation also comes under language a little bit, but communication covers more than that.
Like body language also.
Exactly. It is not just verbal communication and the language and the grammar that you're using. It's also the body language. It's also the voice intonation.
Yeah.
All of that comes under communication. Now you need to have such a strong grip over both of these things, language and communication. Otherwise, you'd find it really not easy to communicate your intent.
Yeah. My simple hack is, if I'm not confident, I always do it in person. If I at any point feel that, okay, if I type this and it won't land, then I'll rather do it in person.
Yeah, that is a very good tip because written communication
is
so much can be misinterpreted. In that.
After we started learning our language and grammar and tonality from, instead of genuine newspapers like Hindu to Deccan Chronicles and Times of India's, I don't think we should be be very confident about our written skills.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays we're not reading any newspapers.
Yeah, so that's true. That too. But yeah. Now the third point why it's not easy is
for the other person to absorb or understand.
Understand the intent. Now, there's so much of intent that we have spoken about. And this is where I find, why it doesn't happen more often than not.
Okay.
Because mostly, whenever we are trying to speak with a certain intent, there is a tendency to impose our intent to the other person rather than understanding what exactly they want.
Right.
Yes, it's like, I'm telling you this is good for you, I'm telling you don't do this because I care for you. It's like, parents telling
are you
kids.
Talking about from the point of perspective of person who is talking or person who's listening?
So when if I am the guy who's getting a shunting about me doing something wrong from a very close person,
right?
And if the close person is like, I know you, I know what's right for you, I'm like, okay, but you don't seem to be bothering about what I want.
Right.
It's like you're trying to replace my intent with your intent. And that is most often than not why it never becomes easy. Because see, when you finally drill down to a conversation which is of high intention, it more often than not becomes imposing.
Right.
There are very few people who can actually lay out the context and then come to the intention part. And I think that's a very important, again, exercise that you need to do.
Yeah.
Is if I am trying to ask you, I'm like, where do you want to go? What are you trying to do? Let me understand what you are trying to do.
Right.
Then I'll tell you what I'm trying to tell you.
Right.
Right. And then let's see if you're on the same page also. So if you say that, no, I really have no clue, that's why I want help. Like, fair enough. It's a clean slate. Let me say my 2 cents. And why I'm saying this is because this is my intention. Right? You're a good friend of mine. I want to punch you every now and then.
Yeah.
But still, I want you to be happy. And this is why I'm saying this. So that small exercise, it mostly starts with, there's a random call and I want to meet you in the next, like today evening we are meeting. Boom, that's it. I want to talk to you about something. Like, okay, what is this about? I won't tell you now. I'll tell it to you when I meet.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 hours later, work's done. You both go to the same place. You meet there and you start off like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why are you behaving like this? Why are you doing this? Dude, trust me. People are not telling it to you on your face, but let me be that guy. I don't care if I get bloodied, whatever.
Yeah.
This is what is happening. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Like an intervention.
Yeah, it's like an intervention, right? And all due respect, yes, his intentions are in the right place. Right. He wants to do that. But the reason why somebody would not buy that is because the person who's trying to put across the message has never cleared the ground. And that's why it's not easy for the other person to absorb your intent.
Yeah, and that's why it comes off as imposing, more imposing than inclusive, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And to connect to another point that you made previously, which is if you had a choice sometimes between written communication and in-person communication, then you would choose the latter.
Yeah.
In the same way, for this particular point where we're talking about the other person's ability to capture your intent, I feel it's very important for it to be one-on-one. Like, even if there's one more person there, when you're having a high-intention conversation.
It's double imposing.
It is, it
is guilt trip, actually.
It mucks up the machinery so much because people tend to be very ego driven. Like, they're driven by their own ego.
Yeah, like, why the fuck are you talking in front of him?
Also, the reason why the point you made, which is it sounds imposing because immediately I'm thinking of, okay, this guy is just trying to impose his intent on me.
Yeah.
He's not trying to understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
So that also goes from the ego. It starts off there.
Yeah.
This also, if there's any other person, their mind, instead of focusing on what you're saying, their mind will be thinking, how am I looking to this person? Like, how am I coming across to this person?
No, it's not even that. I feel it's like, I'm smart.
Now, am I looking bad in front of this third person? Like, I'm feeling insulted because in front of someone else, he's taking my case.
Yeah.
I've had people who reacted this way, where I made the mistake of not doing it one-on-one.
Yeah, you do a lot of mistakes, Bogus.
Of course.
I was there when you did that.
That's how we learn.
Yeah. Mistakes, it's not easy.
It's not easy, yeah.
So, but it's a fair point. Like, you don't make a crowd out of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to give that confidence to that person that this is purely between you and me.
Yeah.
You need to trust me in this. I'm doing this for a reason. So, yeah, like in the third phase of the intent, for the last phase rather, for it to like become purposeful in its life. It's not just a way we have to communicate that. It's also like where, how, when you have to communicate. You have to bring that person to a place where they are open, where they are confident, where they trust you, where they are in that safe zone, right? So
they call it a safe space now.
Safe space, I don't know, whatever it is. It's the same. But you get the point, right? Whoever you're trying to communicate, whether it's a proposal, whether it's about correcting a mistake that they're doing, whether it's about yourself, right? That you want to like reveal to someone, all these things, I think you really need to set up the context. We don't seem to be setting up context anymore nowadays. There's no time for that. That's another thing that, that really pisses me off. People are in so much hurry. Have you ever been in a conversation where
you're trying to do nothing important?
Nothing important. Just like in a hurry. It's almost like second nature. It's happened to me so many times recently where I'm trying to lay out the context saying that, okay, the reason why we are talking about this is blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, I get it. Come on, keep going. Like, what's the point? And you're like, excuse me, like, that's not how it's done, bro.
What are you working on? Budget 2025? Like, what's going on?
Like scam 93?
All the time in the world.
But I think it's a very important activity to do to ensure that the intent realizes.
I found that through multiple iterations and making mistakes and learning and unlearning. Unlearning is not easy.
It's not easy.
ThyGap, subscribe.
And share.
What I've learned is I have to put so much effort.
Before you go forward, this is so loser mentality.
What?
That every 15 minutes or 5 minutes, we kind of like plug ourselves constantly.
Sales, baby, marketing.
I know, but like, it's just one of those days and I'm like, why are we doing this?
Well,
like at least the Telugu podcast will get some audience.
You mentioned loser, bro. It connects to something we already did. Losing, it's not easy.
And share.
It'll never stop. It will never stop. What I was saying was,
multiple iterations.
I find that, through multiple iterations, right, I found that I have to put so much effort to set the part of the setting context also. Is I have to make it clear. I'm taking no pleasure in this. This is actually unpleasant for me also to say. It's not just unpleasant for you to hear. It's going to be unpleasant for me to say. B, I don't care about putting you down or putting myself up over you. Like as if I'm
superior to you.
If I'm shunting you, I'm not trying to be superior or trying to get off on feeling superior. It's none of that. So I have to put so much effort to give disclaimer after disclaimer, bro.
Right.
That it's not this, it's not this, it's not my ego. My intention is this.
It is unfortunately like the movie that we watch in a theater where there are this nowadays, there are like this 20 government ads about don't smoke, don't do this, keep your city clean, like, keep the theater clean, really, like everything. And you're like, okay, when will I get to see the movie? So it has in itself, innately, setting up context is not easy also.
And the movie opens with the guy smoking in the theater, throwing popcorn around. It's like,
doing
what?
everything that
all the 20 disclaimers is doing in line.
So that is the major thing. I think there has to be a revolution where they're like, let's set context. When people speak, let's set context. Let's not try to run someplace where we don't even know where we are going.
What about from the perspective of the person who is supposed to take the meaning or supposed to understand the meaning? What kind of effort should they put to meet these people halfway? Because we've only focused on people who are communicating till now. But what about this other asshole?
Fair point. The other thing that I am a big fan of is if you don't understand, ask.
Yes.
We don't do that again.
Yes.
Like if suppose somebody comes shunting to me and I'm not understanding why they're shunting to me, I'm like, dude, I'm going to listen to all this once again. Don't worry. But can you tell me why you're saying all this?
Right.
People don't do that.
Yeah.
People are like making mental calculations and like
assumptions.
I see why this guy is doing all this. I know what he's getting out of
Yeah.
it. I know it. Because now it's like an ego battle, right?
Exactly.
Oh, you're going to shunt me. You know what I'm going to do? Mentally, I'm going to have this mental orgasm that I'm smarter than you because I've decoded why you're doing all this.
Yep.
Because you want to win brownie points, ABCD plays, or you just want, because I cracked a joke on you is why you're doing this,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
2 weeks back.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Rather than that, why can't we just be like, great speech, bro, but like, can you tell me what we're trying to get at? So that you have a clarity and you can align yourself to that conversation.
Right.
So this is the simple thing that I feel has to be done.
Yeah.
People don't do that again. If people don't get it, they just listen to you and like, okay, cool, I'll keep moving. I think we have to like stop and say like, why? Like, what are you trying to communicate?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because asking questions and the ability to ask the right questions in itself is like an art.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I was thinking of was, at least what I've come to doing now, is something that we covered in our last episode, Anger, It's Not Easy, which is the difference between react and respond.
Yeah.
When someone is shunting me, I've come to a point now where even if it stings me, even if I feel insulted, even if I feel my ego is being attacked, right? I want to still assume a holding pattern, defensively speaking, which is hold your ground. Don't react. Don't say anything. Yeah, it stung you. It hurt you. What he said, probably attacked your ego.
Yeah.
Maybe he's saying it in front of other people.
Yeah.
So maybe you feel like a fool. Hold on. Don't react anymore. Just focus on the value. Is there any value in what this guy is saying? Do I stand to gain anywhere by focusing on any valuable part of his feedback? Forget about how he's packaging his message. Let me first focus on what the message is actually. If there's any value, I'll take it. I'll become a better person.
Fair point.
Yeah, it's all coming up me, Trumps. But if I can figure out that there was no value and his intent was completely malicious, now I can figure out how I want to respond to that.
Right.
Now I want to figure out if I can give him a reverse jab. He's trying to jab me. He's being malicious.
Yeah.
His intent is not pure. So now I can throw a few punches of my own. Or I just absorb I just keep grinding my teeth until that sting wears off. Now I can, with a calm mind, try and see if there's any value in what he said. And if there's value, I take my lesson. I take my learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely, guys, for all our listeners, I completely advocate what Bogus has said just now, because Bogus stops talking to me for like 1 week. And then this is just us talking from recording to recording. There is no communication between the recordings, because I piss him off. I come across much better than him, and he has this ego fight with me and complex and stuff, because obviously the looks, the voice, everything matters, But I get that, Bogus. I see where your core is built off, and it's great that you're kind of shedding light to that. It's learning for me too.
Yeah, bro, because, if I give in to my urges, and if I do what I really want to do, jail time, prison, years of incarceration, I'm not really gaining anything.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah. People being
doesn't
horrified.
Make practical sense.
Yeah. People being horrified all over India. Like, how could you do this to this person?
Negative publicity. You want it.
But it's not helpful if I'm in prison.
At what cost?
At what cost?
I get
I'm trying to balance it.
I get that. Yeah. I think you should look out for a red car. But so that's more or less about why it's not easy.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I think
now
that covers
we have to quickly wrap up, because I need to have my dinner.
Why is it important?
Exactly. Right. How does intent add value? We didn't discuss this part.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Off the bat, improv. Let's improv it. Why is intent important? See, this is why I think we need to have a clear understanding of our intent to do proper episodes.
Exactly.
Give it a good closure. Okay, but anyways, being very serious. I think one of the things that intent absolutely does is it helps you gauge where you are. Because intent is kind of the thread to the end goal.
Right.
So if you're able to have an absolute clarity on your intent, then you're in a position to measure or gauge how far or how close you've come to the end game.
Right.
And that is why it's very important to invest in why you're going for a particular job interview. Even if that means that, dude, it's pure desperation. I need a job because I need my house running. That's my intent. It is fine. The simpler, the better.
Yep.
I think that's another thing that we all should accept, that forget what people say.
Yeah.
But the simpler, the better. So that is one major reason why I find it really important to invest time into understanding my intent of doing things. Because if I don't have that, then there is no point. I'm just roaming around in a dark room, not knowing how do I get out.
Yeah, your strategy is not well formed.
Nothing is well formed.
Because your roots or your foundation is not strong.
Absolutely nothing.
And the whole thing is that we must never lose sight of that objective.
Yeah.
First of all, we have to try and understand or realize what is the simplest form of my objective or my intent. And as I'm going through my day-to-day things, as I'm planning for weeks or months or years, I never lose sight of that overall objective in the end.
Right.
Otherwise, my strategy is going to get fucked.
I'm not much of, again, I'm not much of a guy like as an individual, right? I'm not much of a guy who's like, oh, strategize this, strategize that.
Right.
My simple way of calculating anything is it so simple enough that I can break it down to simpler things? Can I have an intent which I can say it in one sentence? If somebody comes and asks me tomorrow, why do you do ThyGap? Do I have like a one-line answer?
Money.
Right. It's just like fame. Like rock star.
Yeah.
Right. It's like girls, chicks.
Yeah.
So it can be as simple, it can be impractical, it can be stupid, it can be weird, it can be anything. Like adjectives doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For me, the important thing is, can I describe my intent in one sentence if I am ever asked? Not that people will come and ask you about your intent. About, dude, how come you're doing a sales job? Oh, bro, how come you're doing a coding job? Oh, how come you chose like so-and-so engineering or whatever? If you really have consciously taken a decision,
right,
you should have that one word answer or a one line answer saying that this was my idea.
Yeah.
This is the reason. And if you're able to do that, trust me, it gives you so much of, leeway of improvising and building upon that.
It cuts out a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, it cuts out a lot of bullshit. Yeah.
Which cuts out a lot of time waste also.
So many things.
Many things.
The moment you remove bullshit out of your life, you suddenly see, so much of things and resources are there.
Yeah, I mean,
covered under the shite.
Ask Johnny Depp what happens when you remove a little shit from your life. Anyways, so
Johnny Depp told us. Johnny came to us. JD, that's how we call him.
I feel at the very core why it is really, really important is this is what, coasts us by. Like, this is what language is failing me.
Well, stop doing this, bogus.
I'll try.
Stop trying to be like fancy.
I'm not trying to be fancy. Let me explain with an example.
Okay.
So when we are starting off in life from our early youth, etc., our goals tend to be more materialistic. Our goals tend to be more, trivial. Like they're not
wise.
Yeah, or your objectives are more around gathering intelligence, becoming intellectual, coming off as some smart or complicated or, like how we want to run away from simplicity, right? We want to appear smart to others. We want to show other people that in general,
you're intelligent.
That you're intelligent, you have a certain status, your ego boost and all that. We try to chase intellectualism, we try to chase intelligence, try to complicate things. But even when you reach a certain stage where you have money and people call you the smartest, smartest guy in the room, etc., you still have a hole in your heart that you're not able to fill. Your life still feels incomplete. So what happens to these people? What is the gap that these people still feel even after getting a few materialistic things is that wisdom. The lack of that wisdom, which causes them to still feel a void, still feel inadequate, still feel that something is not complete. There is a hole in my life that I still need to keep filling. And they try to keep filling it.
Is that hole your mouth?
No, it's your mouth. They keep filling it with more money, with more status, with more whatever. The only thing they know, the variables that they're familiar with.
Yeah.
But wisdom ultimately is what really helps cover it up, because wisdom tells you, hang on, there's no all answers in life. You're only going to have a finite life and you're only going to know so much. You're always not going to know most of it and you're not going to figure out everything. So if you want to have a happy life, wisdom allows you a way to figure out how to have a happy, fulfilled, content life. We are
doing an episode on intention, right?
This is the example I was telling about.
Okay.
So the same thing if you apply over here and you look at language, communication, and intent.
Yeah.
Even if you focus on language and you make your language strong, you'd be like a literary professor who still cannot probably communicate properly, who still tries to complicate things.
Shashi Tharoor.
Word salad, basically is what they call it.
What is called verbal diarrhea?
Same thing.
Okay.
So,
but it has to be something to do with feces. That's our thing.
Yeah, first
like diarrhea, constipation.
The word salad goes through and then it's verbal diarrhea.
Yeah.
It comes out, I guess. But where was I?
Even if they know language,
we know that language is a finite tool. We've discussed this in our language episode.
Ridiculously finite.
Ridiculously limited.
Yeah.
It cannot communicate our emotions. Okay, so if my language is limited and I know that out of my wisdom, if I try to bolster or support the inadequacy of my language with body language, with voice intonation. Even if I do that, I bring in communication aspect to it. Even then I know that is inadequate to be able to communicate fully, because intent is a very slippery fish.
Yes.
So if the intent part is figured out, then it does what wisdom is doing to that whole intellectual scenario that I painted.
Right.
Intent is taking care of all those inadequacies. It is helping you to coast by. Even though it is not perfect, the tool that you're using, it is still helping you and your fellow brother or whatever, the people that you're surrounded by. It helps you guys to meet each other halfway, and despite inadequacies of communication, despite, whatever roadblocks, you still are able to meet each other halfway and overcome those challenges. And I think that's why intent is important.
And guys, that brings us to the end of the episode after that 18-minute monologue by Bogus. Intent, it's not easy.
It is not easy.